Alright, so this video will be a quick one-on-one video going over the belt path and how to properly align it and the easiest way to put it in. So I'll try to walk through that. Basically, you want to start off with a carriage towards the back, right? That helps these runs along the bottom and the top on this side be shorter, so it makes it easier to install. And basically what I did is I started with the back bottom one down here, and you basically run it through the carriage, through the bottom slot in the back, around, and then out the front bottom slot. Actually, there's only one slot, so you run out the front, and then once it comes out over here, then you can just temporarily clamp it down with some zip ties until you get it finalized. But just put some quick zip tie along these two here to hold it in. You'll run the belt path along the back, and then what you'll notice is that the right 20-tooth pulley is actually facing downwards, right? So you have the smooth part along the top, the tooth part along the bottom, and your left one is flipped the other way around. So the teeth are at the top, the smooth part's at the bottom, and that gives you the two different planes. So again, you'll take your belt, you'll wrap it around your 402 ZZ, or sorry, 406 ZZ, and you'll wrap it around that, and it'll go around the 20-tooth pulley, and then along the back side of it, right? And you'll continue again. You can see that there's a very slight gap over here, maybe about 1 millimeter or 2, which is just enough. That's fine. You'll run along the whole bottom, right, all the way up to the front bearings, right? You'll put it on the lower one, try to keep that nice tension going, and then around here. And again, you won't have the, don't put the tensioner in yet till the end. Excuse my LEDs here that are falling. Right, don't put the tensioner in just yet. You can have it there, just have it loose. And then you continue running the lower one along the lower pulley down here. Sorry, trying to do this upside down. All right, and then continue that lower path going all the way to the left idler pulley or bearings. Right, you'll put it around those, and going inside to the extruder carriage, again the bottom back slot, and then coming through the side around here, and then into the front lower slot. So again, we're trying to keep all the belts going into the back slots. Again, there's two slots here, you can see that kind of. So we're trying to make sure that all the belts go into the back, and that keeps all the forces along the same plane. And then I just kept all the teeth facing the front of the printer, and that makes it work pretty well. So you'll get that done, and again just wrap it around, put that zip tie loose on this side, hold that one down, and then you're good. Now you're going to take your your second belt, which should be of equal length, right? You would have cut the belts in half. You're going to take that second belt, you're going to loop it around through the back top slot, right? Bring it around, temporarily zip tie it, hold it in place. Again, these don't need to be very tight, just get it somewhat loose in there. And the same thing applies if you're using the black rubber belts or steel belts. And you're going to take that top one, you're going to run along this way, around your pulley, along your 20-tooth pulley there, right? Again, trying to keep that nice and tight. Doesn't have to be very tight at this point, but at least somewhat tight so it holds its weight. Again, bring it around along the top bearing there, and then you go back along the other side, along the top bearing, all the way, follow it to the top idler here. Sorry about the light. So going around there, and then back in. Right, so that's ideally what you want to achieve. Now you'll notice I have different colored bearings, or sorry, different colored spacers, right? The front ones are all the same. You shouldn't really have an issue there. And then your back ones should be the same, but you might find out, just depending on the washers you used here, or depending on the washers used somewhere else, or depending on how high you've set this up, right? You might need to use different size spacers. So you'll want to make sure your goal, what you're trying to achieve, is that when you move the carriage all the way to the X. You want that as that little bend right there, right? This section going from here to about right here. You want this to be as straight as you possibly can, right? I'll try to move the camera around a little bit, but that's really what you're after, is you're after that straight. What you don't want is this to be too low or this to be too high. What will then happen is the belt might ride outside of this little groove. Now it's a very small groove. You can see it doesn't go over the entire belt, especially on these tooth sections over here, right? But what will end up happening, and I can't simulate it, but what will end up happening is the belt will ride up onto the groove, and then in the worst case scenario, it'll come off the pulley entirely. So there's different ways to fix this, right? Bigger flanges would be nice to have, but if you have this aligned properly, you don't need those bigger flanges. Now you can, this spacer part is parameterized in Onshape, so you can change the spacing of it. I think by default it's set to 13. You can adjust it to 15 or whatever you want, 20. All it'll do is it'll make this flat portion of the body here taller or shorter, right? Obviously you don't want to go too short, but you can go, I think it's short of 7. I went on one of them, it still works fine. You can also use washers, you can use nuts, whatever you want, right? But your goal, what you're after here, is this to being level. Now the same thing applies on this other side. It's a little easier over here. And what you want to make sure this is level, again, push the Y all the way to the back. And really what you're after is the level from here, right? So you're after this being as close to the same level as this as you possibly can. Now again, you'll move these over and you'll align these, and ideally this is what you want, right? You want this as close as I can get it, but if you notice they're all pretty near level, right? And the way that this is set up in the CAD model is that the spacing of these slots here is the spacing roughly where these should be, both the left and the far right one, to where you don't get any rubbing on the belts and you get that nice spacing. So, you know, if you find out that you have this set up and the portion from see my fingers here, so from going from this slot to this slot maybe looks good and you got a nice and level there, but this is too low, right? Obviously raise this tooth pulley a little higher. You want to use this as your reference, the slot here, right? So again, start here, make sure that it's level to this guy, and then make sure that this is on the same level as this. And again, we're talking level, we're talking the Z height, right? So that the top of the belt here is roughly the same as the top of the belt here. And hopefully that makes sense, right? Again, you're doing all this in the back, right? Don't do this in the front. And that's about it. You should be able to move this, butt it right up against the edge, right? Pull it like that, pretty hard. And you should note that the belt is not sliding up or down, right? That's ideally what you're after. All right, hopefully this helps with the belt path. Again, just to summarize, start with the back bottom slot, going on the lower plane first, around the back 20 tooth pulley, around the front lower pulley, left front lower pulley, and then around the pulley on the X end nut here, and again into the bottom back, and then start next one with the top left in this case. I guess you could start with the top left here, but I like starting with the top left here because then you're pulling against the one that you already have, so you're not gonna twist this that way. You're hopefully gonna line it again, and then start with the top left one, go around the pulley, 20 tooth pulley, front top, front right top, and then the top X nut here, and then back into the top back on the carriage. So hopefully that makes sense and gives you guys an idea of the belt pathing and the way to follow. And then when you're all done with that, what you'll do is take your needle nose pliers or your fingers, whatever you want to use, pull the belts nice and tight. I suggest just putting a temporary zip tight to hold them nice and tight there, and then get this clamp, and you'll set this clamp up again. It has the M3 screws in the front. There's 3 of them here and 3 M3 nuts in the back, and then you'll tighten those. And again, before you finally tighten it, just pull the belt out from here, make sure it's nice and tight in there, and then pull it back in, and then again it's already been, right, pull it through here, pull on this part here, make sure that this is nice and tight. You want this to be as tight as you can, right? I have a bit of slop, but it's not too bad. And then once you're done, then you take the tensioner, mount the tensioner, and again the way I mounted it, I like it is it's inside the frame, not sticking out, and it's pulling on the two, right, as opposed to pushing them out. And so I'm pulling it inwards, creating that tension on this pulley and creating the tension on the other pulley as well, so that the belt, so this is a tighter angle on this side, tighter angle here, right? And then just slide this pulley back as much as you can, and you just want to get a nice tension. There's no exact measurement, but I heard it should sound like a low guitar note or banjo. I don't know if you can hear there, but all right, hopefully that helps you guys, and let me know if there's any questions on the belt pathing.